Hello folks, and welcome to this short video on the main differences between the Victoria 2 and Victoria 3 economies as we know it before release. And, well, it says that I'm an economist on the video title, and technically, you know, it's up to interpretation because I am I guess an economic sociologist, if you could say it like that. I don't hold a PhD, but I have a master's degree in sociology, and most of my focus has been economic and historical in nature. So I have studied both national economics and historical economics and economic sociology and the like. So I know a little bit, but I wouldn't be no super expert by any means. However, I think I know quite a bit enough to have a say on a little bit of the economic system in Victoria. And to be honest, that's kind of crazy though, that it would require that kind of knowledge to be able to judge the simulation in the Victoria games. But yeah, I mean, so what's the deal? Let's get down to it. Victoria 2 is, you know, a lot of people love it because of its very complicated mechanics, especially when it comes to the economy. And honestly, it's the main appeal of Victoria, is the fact that the economic game is the focus. It's not just the map painting, the military game. The main game is the economy. It's the production of goods, it's the sale of goods, it's the enriching of your pops. And you know, I feel like if I was allowed to talk on for a long time, I would talk on for a long time, probably several hours. But I think the main difference, as we know right now, between Victoria 2 and Victoria 3 is not discussed enough, but maybe for good reason, because it's very unclear until we actually start playing how it's gonna play out. I did actually get to play Victoria 3 during PDXCon, although I wasn't actually looking for the details that I'm about to mention. But basically, to me, the main difference is that Victoria 2 has a limited money supply. So the money in the system is, well, limited. And we have a world market in which goods that are produced can be stocked, and then they can be sold, and prices fluctuate depending on the supply and demand on the world market. It's already getting a little bit, you know, if you're not following along, sorry, but yeah. Basically, people or countries can create stocks of goods, and they can sell those goods in the world market, and prices fluctuate, and there are certain delays in the price fluctuation there. What else? Access to this world market in Victoria 2 is established or decided by, at least on the state level, by obviously which sphere of influence you're in terms of the great powers. So if you're a smaller country, you are basically forced to go to the market of the bigger country first for those goods, and then if you are a great power or an independent power, it is also predicated on the amount of prestige you have. So the more prestige you have, or your ranking in prestige, determines this number here, this value. So number 1 in the world in terms of prestige, here on the left, is the ranking that you will get access to goods first. Right? So those of you who have played a lot of Victoria 2 will know that in any certain game, you can end up in a scenario where you will have a goods shortage, but not just a goods shortage in which the prices are insane, but where there are literally no goods being produced. And I mean, an example of this can be, for example, in the goods that aren't even unlocked in the beginning of the game, right? There are 0 goods being produced. Here we already even have needs, so that those needs can't be covered. And if you are anyone but the number 1 country with access to a bunch of markets that you conquer or develop with industrial with your industry, you can end up in a very bad situation where basically all the countries above you are just, consuming all the goods before, and industrializing and just doing everything before you can even have access to it. So you can be stuck in a very, very bad position, basically, in Victoria 2. At least that's my experience. Some people may have other experiences with that and may have more, more Victoria 2 experience than I do. And the main difference that happens in Victoria 3 is that there will no longer be a world market in this sense, but there are national markets. So each country will have a national market, and prices will be calculated based on the supply and demand in that national market. And how do I explain this? Let's see. So anything produced in a country, right, will say, let's take a factory here, for example. If we produce machine parts, the machine parts, I don't even know if machine parts exist in Victoria 3, but the point is that machine parts, if there was an equivalent in Victoria 3, will not be stockpiled, and they will not go to a world market in which countries all over the world can then bid on. What happens is that all the pops in the national market have access to it, depending on obviously infrastructure and distance to capital, as far as I've understood from there are also regional markets, and etc. But basically, it's all contained within the supply and demand of your national market, which can obviously be much larger by customs unions and satellite states. And that means that any transactions are made immediately, right? So if you produce only one machine part in your whole country, and there's a demand that's way above that, it will calculate some price, and that price will then apply immediately, and that good will be sold for that price. There will be goods shortages, as far as I understand, right? You can still produce too few goods to sustain a particular industry, but you will not encounter, I imagine, and we'll see how this plays out in Victoria 3 when you're playing, situations in which you are hampered in your production of goods purely because you don't have access to some sort of abstract world market prestige, right? Because this, actually, if you think about it, as fun as the world market and this stockpiling of goods is to play around with, and also very hard to actually understand when you're playing sometimes, as fun as that is, this prestige system in which whoever decides to invent a few more techs first and kills a few more units randomly, has access to goods first, doesn't actually really make that much sense. Obviously, power projection in a way could make sense, but it's still a price-based system, right? So obviously you can, so Victoria 3, you can basically have a goods shortage in which, say that you are producing, I don't know, your iron industry, you're not producing enough iron, or rather enough, and enough is hard to say what is enough, right? But your production is low, so and your demand in your national economy is high, so the price goes up, and it's not fulfilling enough iron deliveries to run certain industries profitably. And so in that way, wages will be cut, people will be fired, etc. So you can have that kind of shortage. But say that your production is still profitable, even though you're producing, or like the average price is much higher than prices across the world, you can still have a very profitable, like in the theoretical sense here, right? I don't have any concrete examples, but in the practical or in the theoretical sense, you could have an industry where you produce low amounts of iron, and the price is very high, but the profitability of using that iron for something else is so high that because there's a huge demand somewhere else for certain goods where you're exporting or something. Maybe you're an export-focused economy, you know, and you're the first one in the world that's building cars or something, and everyone wants these cars. Your high iron price in your local economy will not necessarily mean that you are certainly totally hampered from producing, right? Your economy could still work even with those high prices. So yeah, I mean, even in some ways, a high price for a good could actually be a good thing, right? Especially a refined good. In the beginning, you could have a refined good be in low supply and high demand. That creates a high price, and the people that then start making that early in your economy are able to create large amounts of profit and create an industry around that, so they're investing, etc. And yeah, so in that way, I think the Victoria 3 system might be a lot more dynamic and interesting, and certainly in some ways way more realistic than the Victoria 2 system, as much as we've come to love this particular screen for many of us in the community. Okay, so another aspect of the closed money supply that we have in Victoria 2 is that any new money, and I might be wrong on this, but as far as I understand, any new money created in Victoria 2 comes from the production of precious metals. And this might actually change everyone's strategy. If you've ever played Victoria 2 and you don't know what you're doing, I'm just going to tell you, obviously, develop your economy, etc. Don't just pile a bunch of money into your coffers. But basically also, any money that's injected into the economy is coming from precious metal production, which precious metals in Victoria 2 can also mean trade hubs where you're taking tariffs and the like for stuff. So where is the precious metals? I'm blind right now, but it's produced in for example, Hong Kong here, or Copenhagen. So areas where you have lots of trade passing, and also in mines and the like. But nevertheless, so there is money being injected slowly into the economy throughout the century that the game plays out in. However, in Victoria 3, that's not at all the case. Money appears during transactions, as far as I understand, or is constantly being injected. I mean, there is minting of money, but I'm not sure. I don't actually know the mechanics thus far, and I'm definitely going to be coming back to do a follow-up video on this once Victoria 3 is out. Maybe quite a few follow-up videos on this. But I'm just curious to know if how that's going to work. Especially, for example, how the effect of if you do console commands. If you've ever used console commands in Victoria 2 to inject cash into your system, you will know that it's not that easy. Okay, sure, you inject a bunch of money, you go around and you spend it. But the spending of it increases prices on pretty much everything, which eventually creates this massive cyclical crash in the economy. Basically, yeah, you just create a bunch of inflation, and then deflationary periods and the like. And money is also, being transported all over the world in massive rates, mostly to China, when you do that. In Victoria 3, that's not at all the case, so I'm curious what will be happening on a practical level if you mess with the console commands and give yourself cash in Victoria 3. Obviously, you'll increase your gold reserves, but once you start spending that, how does that affect stuff? Very interesting to see how that's going to work. I don't really have answers to everything. I guess that is what makes Victoria 2 and probably Victoria 3 incredible games, is that we are actually able to talk on such a high level that we are almost being academic to the point of being able to really say, I don't know what's going on, I'm curious to know more. And yeah, I feel like you could write quite a few research papers on this, and probably even a PhD thesis. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll be writing a thesis on the Wiki economy. Who knows? Anything's possible. But yeah, so if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear that. You know, peer review me if you have any critiques as well. I'd love to hear that. And do follow me for Victoria 3, because I will definitely be playing that when it comes out, and I will be doing some follow-up videos on the economics of Victoria 3. Until then, have a good one. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.